So, I'm a registered Democrat. Been a registered Democrat all my life. I got to Dayton 27 years ago after being in the Army. And 2 years after I got here, I bought a house in the South Park Historic District. Of course, I didn't know it was the South Park Historic District. There were no signs saying it was a historic district. There was nothing in the deed. There was no way of telling me that I bought a historic home. And one of the first things I did is I contracted with a company, Dayton Door Sales. Would consider them in Old North Dayton, a little bit extended. They came out and put new garage doors up. Next thing you know, city inspector put a sign on my door, stop work order, and they took me to court. Couldn't understand this because I bought the house for $14,500. When I tell this story to people from New York, they're like, I paid more than that for a parking space. They think, what did you buy? Did you buy a trailer? No, I bought a 1,700 square foot framed Victorian with a 2-car garage and a fenced-in yard. They can't believe it. So I had gone down to City Hall. I was expecting the mayor, the commissioners, to be happy that a young veteran had bought a house and was fixing it up and was trying to do something in the community. And this was obviously a house that had seen better days. And nobody listened. In fact, they didn't respond at all. And if you watch a commission meeting today, it's almost the same thing. You go down there, you talk, your 3 minutes is up, thank you, sit down, that's it. They might have somebody come speak to you later. And I would go back, and I was a big fan of Tom Peters, and I'd tell them about customer service. And when people raise a complaint about your business and the way you conduct it in service, and they offer suggestions, generally you should respond. We have not responded. We still don't have a one number you call for any problem with the city. We still don't have a help desk type thing where we're tracking complaints and resolutions. We still have an entire staff sitting through every commission meeting, even if they have no business there, nothing to do. They sit there. These are the highest paid people in the city, twiddling their thumbs while they go through a process which can only be said to be a rubber stamp, since almost everything is voted for unanimously, and there is no public discussion. The city charter actually says the city's business is to be conducted 1 day per week, 1 meeting per week at a regular scheduled time. I was really surprised back in, I think it was 1995, to find out that they've been having a second meeting every week that they call the work session, that they use the emergency notification system that's laid out, where they send a notice to the press 24 hours beforehand, and they have this work session. Something was very odd. And when I decided to run for mayor 20 years ago, I had no idea of what I was doing and what I was up against, but I went and tried anyways. Here I am 20 years later, still trying. But I've learned a lot since then. I know a lot of you. I know a lot of the community leaders. I hope they know me, and I think I have a different vision for our city. And I think it's time that we had open, honest government and representation that discusses issues out in the open and actually challenges the city manager to do something different, to present new ideas, to make a change that makes an impact. What we've seen is a history of, quote, economic development initiatives for the last 20-something years, and I can go down the list, where we spent huge amounts of money on projects that are supposed to, quote, save Dayton. I mean, we can start out Arcade Square, Arcade Tower, Courthouse Square, Riverscape, Schuster Center, baseball. We've seen it all. We've poured millions and millions of dollars into these downtown projects. And in the meantime, our neighborhoods, the property values continue to drop. Our population drops. Our income taxes collected drop. And we keep focusing on bricks and mortar. I do not believe bricks and mortar make up a city. I believe people make up the city. And I've seen in my neighborhood, South Park, one of the few neighborhoods where property values had actually risen, that we succeed most when we don't focus on our historic homes or on our the infrastructure, when we focus on our sense of community, our community pride, our porch and patio parties, the things that bring people together, and when we work together as a team. My neighborhood association was broken at one time. We had 200 people, and there was talk about stuffing ballot boxes, and the neighborhood splitting in two, and I became the neighborhood president, calmed all that down, brought it back together. I served for 2 years, I moved on. I don't believe that neighborhoods are going to grow or be successful with the programs that we've had out of City Hall so far. I hear a lot of talk about, we're going to spend a lot of money tearing down houses. In fact, the projected cost to tear down the houses on the list right now is $60 million. That's great if you're a landfill owner or a demolition company, but I've never heard of anybody saying, I'm going to move to Dayton, Ohio because they have more empty lots than anywhere else. We can't cut the grass at the lots we have now. I am not going to stand here at this juncture and tell you the solution is to tear down houses to build a city, because I do not believe that is the solution. I believe the solution is in creativity, in innovation, in new ideas, new strategies, where we reward communities for pulling together and coming up with solutions to their problems. That means we need new ideas, new voices, and a new system for working with our neighborhoods. The priority board system, even in its name, they were there as prioritizing needs. It was all about what we need, instead of building on strengths. And we have to start looking at what our strengths are in each neighborhood and encouraging them to take those strengths and either add to them in their own community or share them with a sister community. Tie neighborhoods together and reward that. But all that said and done, I'm in politics right now. This is an election. And I hate to tell you, I really, really don't do well at politics. I don't like politics. I don't like political advertising. In fact, I own an ad agency. And I have a full-page ad that was done in 1994 by a guy named Jerry Delafemini, New York, great copywriter. And he says, don't call it advertising. Because what passes for political advertising would be illegal if you or I did it for our businesses. The false promises over and over and over. We've seen so much money spent on smear campaigns. We've seen money spent aimlessly on yard signs. What does a yard sign say? What is a yard sign other than a piece of trash that we allow to be put out all over our community with someone's name on it? They've always bothered me. They've always rubbed me wrong. So this time, I decided it's time to do things different. Besides accepting the mayor's challenge to run for $10,000 or less, I decided, instead of buying yard signs, I do something different. I went down to Tuffy Brooks and found out that I can buy 100 basketball nets for a lot less than I can buy 100 yard signs. Bought a can of green Rust-Oleum fluorescent spray painted the bottoms of the nets, and I started hanging them on city courts all over the city. Now, I hate to tell you, the basketball court ratio in this town, there's a lot more on the west side than there are on the east side. There's also a lot of basketball courts in very sorry shape on both sides of town. I have been disgusted with the conditions I found on some of these courts. So after I hung about 100 of them, I made some posters up. And I took the posters out and I went to barber shops. I talked to barbers. I said, look, here's what I'm doing. Would you like to sponsor me? Each net costs $2. One net's $2, 2 nets is $4. You sponsor a net or two, I'll give you a poster, you hang the poster up in your shop, and please tell people about what's going on. Because these nets don't have my name all over them. Even though I do stencil pavement with some washable paint, it's not as readable, it's not as understandable. So this is Parkside Homes. This is what I found there. There were weeds, stink trees growing through the cracks in the pavement. So not only did I put up nets, but I cleared all this. And it took me about 3 hours on the double court and another hour and a half on the single court. And I added 3 courts back to our inventory. Courts where whoever was cutting the grass at Parkside, they were using the basketball courts to stack the fallen branches. So the poster says, it's time to elect someone who makes it clear it's Parks and Rec, not Parks R.A. Rec. I run into these all over town. I want to know what genius bought rims that you need knots, tape, or zip ties to hang a net on. It's time City Hall played ball. We have these rims that are made for chains. Chains are what you put convicts in. Chains are not for basketball. Okay? They wear out the ball. They're not good. They rust. They don't solve the problem. Nets are $2. It just means somebody actually has to care enough to go put them up. This one's a bit of an attack ad, but it's amazing how well tape sticks to rust. Apparently this is acceptable to basketball star you've elected 3 times to the City Commission. This is at Gettysburg Park, where one of the kids told me, no duh, he says, that place is so horrible, every time you score, you get rust in your eye. We've done tax breaks galore, including we just did a 30-year tax break to General Electric, one of the largest corporations in America that pays no taxes. We give corporate tax breaks, they promise jobs, we break a promise to our kids. This is over by Cincinnati Street. I left the name of the company off. They were very proud to donate these backboards and rims, but the state they're in right now, no kids are able to play there. This is at Burkham Park. This is where a lot of those barbers played ball when they were growing up. This backboard's famous. Looks like something came up and just bit a corner of it off. It says, next time a politician asks for your backing, ask them about our backboards. Burkham Park, Dayton. And across the way from this backboard, the other has a rim that looks like a roller coaster. This poor little court, I said this may be the saddest excuse for a basketball court. Every other shot, you had to shake the pole to get his ball back. This is at Salem Heights. It's a dirt patch. It's packed solid because they're out there all day long playing. And I put a new net up to replace that when they could get their ball back after they shot. And just, I think it was last week, I went back to that park. I found the kid that I put in the video about this extra, and I showed him the poster. And I gave him one. He went running home to tell his mom, but I got a picture of him beforehand. He was so happy. Because now he didn't have to shake the pole to get his ball back. And last but not least, this was actually in my neighborhood. This was the first place I went to hang a net. Because believe it or not, I've never hung a basketball net in my life, and I really had no clue. But it says, if our kids are shooting each other, maybe it's because we never gave them a proper goal to shoot for. And unfortunately, this is the poster that's most popular with our barbers. This is the one the majority of them picked, followed by the one probably with the little boy. Our kids deserve better. They deserve parks with basketball rims that have nets on them, that don't have weeds growing through them. I'm not even going to talk about the tennis courts, which are even worse, where in many cases the chain link fence has been stripped off. I'm not going to talk about the fact that the water fountains don't work in our parks. I'm not going to talk about the fact that they don't cut the grass. $2 nets is all those kids really want, and they'd be out there playing. And we can't do that. Princeton, which is one of our full-time staff rec centers, you cannot play a full court game of ball. It's got 6 backboards. It's got 2 3/4 rims. I don't know how you evaluate a rim. There's 2 that are really usable, and 2 that are so-so, and 2 empty backboards. How anybody goes to work every day at Princeton and doesn't make sure that there are nets on those rims is beyond comprehension to me. That is government's basic service, to provide things for the entire community. To provide basketball court should not be the most difficult thing we do. But we can't accomplish that. And when I look at my campaign literature 20 years ago, I was talking about the same things then that I'm talking about now. Basic services. Focusing on getting customer service right. Getting the fact that when you sweep a street, it doesn't do you any good if the cars are still parked on it. If New York City can sweep all their streets with the parking problems they have and get people to move their cars from one side of the street to the other on certain days to sweep our streets, we should be able to do that in Dayton, Ohio. And I don't know why nobody on our illustrious commission has ever thought to think that we could do better at the basics, the fundamentals. Because these $1 million sky-high projects, spending $4 million plus to go out and assemble a property for a Kroger store for which they had no contract for, if I had done that in my business, I would have been fired. I would have been out of business. But no, millions of your dollars were spent on speculative real estate for no benefit to the community. And that's what we've had for the last 20 years. I own a small business just like you. I don't appreciate it when my competitor gets a grant for $125,000 to buy video equipment. They voted to go ahead with it. It didn't happen. But all of you would feel the same way. It's hard to compete. I feel sorry for Jerv Janney. He's been a real estate owner in this. He and his family have been a real estate owner downtown in this city for over 100 years with Dayton Hydraulic Corporation. Hydraulic, as in they used to run the water channels through that ran the mills and everything else that made the city great. Jerv Janney has to compete with subsidized rents in brand new buildings that we have paid for with our tax dollars that do not have to charge market rates. And it's killing his business. Just like it would kill yours or kill mine or any of the rest of them. We have to get out of the unleveling playing field business and start looking at how do we bring our community back up. And to take that and to do that, I have things on my campaign list that I want to see done. And I think they're critical. I'm just going to concentrate on the digital Dayton part because I think it is probably the most important initiative we could make to take this city from being on our way to being Detroit to on our way to being Atlanta, LA, Austin, someplace where things are happening and people feel good about coming into our community and investing again. The problems we face are of gross economic divide in our community. And this goes back over 30 years ago to when we instilled busing and the people with the money who could afford left our community. We economically segregated Dayton. What we have left for a tax base, and when I go knock door to door and I ask for email addresses, and these people, I don't have email, I don't know, have a computer, there aren't jobs you can apply for. There are not jobs you can have without computer skills. We have to bridge the digital divide in this community, and we have to do it promptly. So, for the amount of money they spent on the Kroger deal, we could put an iPad in every student's hands in Dayton Public Schools. That also means all those families then have a device to get online. But getting online, they can't do it at home. Because, number one, they can't afford it. And number two, even if they could, I'm going to just ask them, raise your hand if you actually live in Dayton and are a Dayton voter. There's probably not very many in this room. Yeah. But we don't have fiber in Dayton for residential homes. It didn't happen. It's happening in Centerville. It's happening all along Beaver Creek and Huber Heights and Fairborn. It's not happening in the city of Dayton. The city of Dayton was all excited when Google was offering Google Fiber. They spent a lot of money making a video that said, hey, come to Dayton. Google picked Salt Lake City, or Kansas City, and then they picked Provo, Utah, and then they picked Austin, Texas. We have to do it ourselves. We already have a fiber network. It runs all our traffic lights. First step would be to put one link of fiber into every neighborhood, into a community center or someplace so the kids could go there after school. Get in there, do their homework, get online, because the internet truly is the repository of everything you need to know. We all know that. We're all connected. But for them, it's like giving them the World Book Encyclopedia on steroids, which was my dream when I was in 4th or 5th grade and trying to do the homework. If only I had that encyclopedia the World Book at home, I could sit there and do all my research, and I didn't have to go to the library. But look, the internet's there, but our kids aren't getting on it. Right now, we have one computer for every 4 students in Dayton Public Schools. That is not going to prepare them for the future. We have to step in and step up. The second part of it is eventually, I want to get the entire city covered with Wi-Fi. Why? Well, you've ever heard of the country called Estonia? It was a third world Baltic state. But back in the late 90s, somebody had the vision and said, look, the world is going online, and they wanted to make sure their citizens were a part of it. It's been over 10 years that you can't go anywhere in that entire country and get online on the Wi-Fi system there. The entire country is covered in Wi-Fi. We have to be competitive. We have to offer something that the other communities don't offer. And empty lots is not the answer. Tearing down all these houses and spending $60 million is not the answer. I've never seen anybody move to a city because, wow, they have more empty lots than any other city. And we can't build our way into success either. We've seen, over and over, we've built project housing. It looks nicer each time, but it's still project housing, and it doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't change. Even when you subsidize the cost, they have houses in Twin Towers that they're renting out for $238 a month that are brand new, that are 4-bedroom houses. How does that make me feel as a landlord? How do I compete with that? I can't. And it doesn't solve the problem for that family other than getting a nice house for very little money. Does that raise their economic abilities, their strengths? No, it doesn't. We provide Wi-Fi, it does something for all of us. Every one of us has a smartphone, and we pay for a data package, but if we're on Wi-Fi, there's no cap on that. So your phone in the city of Dayton is more powerful and more valuable to you if we have the city covered in Wi-Fi. Think about the changes it would make. We've gone on the course of running our restaurant. If you say the city of Dayton is a restaurant, where all we focused on is serving the people at the chef's table and giving them filet mignon for free to keep them happy because they're the people who are going to, quote, bring jobs. Well, we have given crappy service to every other customer that walks in our door. We've raised water rates to the point where some companies have said, thank you very much, but we'll drill our own wells. Just ask Cargill. We've done things that have been anti-business over and over and over, and you've got to wonder if it's a pay-to-play system. Because for the life of me, I don't see the return on spending $60 million tearing down houses and making $60 million worth of empty lots when we could do things that could set our city apart and change things. So that's where I'm at. I've limited my campaign to $10,000. I've raised almost $7,000 in very small amounts. I've gone to barber shops. I've done this. I continue to hang basketball nets. I've hung over 200 now. I've had people buying me rims, so this weekend, Princeton is going to change. Princeton is going to have full court basketball for the first time in years. And if you do nothing else, I want you to go look at hoopsdayton.org, or you go to David Esrati, there's a link there, and watch the video about me putting up these nets, because that video was done by 2 Dayton Public School students this summer. It took them 2 months to do what I would have had done in 2 days, but it's a powerful video talking about the impact to those kids of having nets on rims.